Hey guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about using dual graphic cards in Final Cut Pro 10.1 that was released late last year. I'm not even talking about the for the new Mac Pro, which came out late last year as well, the 2013 model, which that's the main reason why they released the new version of Mac Pro 10 to take advantage of those dual graphic cards. And the first thing once I realized with the new 10.1 was, can I use it in my older Mac Pro, which I've got two of them? And I did hear one or two reports, people of doing it, and it seemed to work. And I waited a little bit longer to see what else came up first to be sure. And there's a website called Barefeets. They do a lot of testing, benchmarking of Mac Pros and graphic cards and Mac desktop computers and so forth. And they confirmed it as well, and they use several different cards in the older Mac Pros. And I'll read to you what they said about it as well. And it says, out of curiosity, we ran the tests with dual Radeon HD 5770s and got render times only slightly slower than dual 7970s. The 5770s required only one power feed each, so we used the two factory standard PCIe power feeds. A pair of them is definitely faster than rendering in Final Cut Pro 10.1 than any single AMD GPU, including the Radeon HD 7970. And let me switch back here. And so it does work, which is really exciting. Now, I didn't have the right card to put in there to test it myself and show you guys. So I'm just going to be talking about it. Now, the last couple of years, Apple has been adding a lot of drivers for a lot of the new graphic cards that came out that aren't supported, or Apple sells default through the website that isn't supported in the Mac Pro. So you can use a fairly recent graphic card for a PC, and most of them will run within Mac OS X 10 point. I forgot what version, but most of it's supported. Now you won't get a boot screen because it doesn't have the right EFI firmware to do that, but it will once it boots up into the desktop. Everything will work fine. Also, third-party vendors have been adding support for newer graphic cards in the older Mac Pros, which the boot screen does work, so you can put different options as you're booting up. And it even has a selector switch to go between Mac Pros and PC desktops. So there's a lot of options for people still using the older Mac Pro like me. Now, the only thing about using more than one graphic card is the power requirements, because you can't use anything over 225 watts, or you risk of either a lot of problems in the Mac Pro. Unfortunately, Apple routes their power to their graphic cards, well, obviously through the PCIe port, but they have two external cables that are hooked up from the motherboard, and then which are two 6-pin power ports, which I think 75 watts apiece, and then they get additional power from the PCIe slot as well. So both cards can't total past 225, so that kind of limits what you can put in there. Now, a lot of people have been using external power supplies, jerry-rigging it. I think one actually you can fit in the CD-ROM drive. I believe it's the 5.25 size power supply that they have. So at least it leaves some option. And like I said, unfortunately, Apple routes those cables through the motherboard circuit traces. So if you exceed that wattage by too much, you can actually burn those traces out, which is a bad thing. And I kind of really wish that Apple would have routed it from their power supply directly to the graphic cards. But they probably did that to make it cleaner inside, no wires which also improves airflow as well, comparing it with a PC desktop. And I've got several here, graphic cards I'm going to show you now. This one's both of them are actually sold by Apple that do work full support, which this one's the ATI Radeon 4870, which is not a bad card. It does work. Now, it does have to have two power feeds, two 6-pins for that to work. And this is actually a little bit newer one, which is not quite as powerful as the 4870. And this one's also ATI Radeon 5770. Now, this one only uses one 6-pin power feeds, which is great. So now if you had something like this, you could probably put two of these in there and run one power feed each and be perfectly fine, which Bare Feets actually did. So at least people like me have an option of using their older Mac Pros for a couple more years.